Hi, Nora.
Hi, Jerry. Nice to see you
Yeah,
and
nice to
everybody.
see you too. Whatever.
Hi,
it was.
Nora.
Greg is here. This is like a regular Board of Trustees meeting. Greg has attended.
That's right.
Hey, everyone.
I look forward when we can all do this really in person.
I know. I didn't think I would ever miss that. But I missed it.
Maybe next year for our birthdays, we can all be together at a meeting.
That's right. That would be great.
Yeah. Who?
All right, we are now streaming on YouTube, and then I will broadcast the meeting for the public to join in if they want to in 4 minutes.
Thanks, Cliff.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Cliff.
I'm going to leave the meeting, guys. I will keep an eye on my email in case anyone emails me that they're having a problem getting on. But other than that, have a great meeting, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, Sally.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Bye.
Bye, Sally.
Again.
Augie,
Yes.
on our running list of cuts, can you check 90400801?
Can they see me? You gonna get me? Stop my video.
Should that be 0803?
Very much. Bye-bye. Hi. Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Everybody here?
That is correct. It should be 03.
We're here. I'm here, and unfortunately, my camera is also having problems today.
Oh, take a look at the number, because I think the number is,
Yeah, we did a lot of work last week with Cliff. He figured, but
off by a lot.
oh, let me see. No. Same thing. Same thing, Cliff.
All right.
No, not to worry now. Don't worry. I'll just listen in and I'll we'll get back to this. Okay.
All right. I'm gonna start broadcasting the meeting so everyone can join, the public.
It looks like 35, Augie, 30, somewhere around 35, but I could be looking at the wrong thing.
What are you guys talking about?
Workman's comp number. I'm just looking at the
That's
workman's comp number.
It's an 0803 is the large premium.
Yeah, so in our rundown of cuts,
Mhm.
we have it listed as 0801,
Oh,
and then the number is the total for the group 8 number instead of 0803. You'll see it.
pulling up now.
I get what you're saying. I just
All
want
right,
to total it to show what the total is increasing.
all right. We're ready to start the meeting. I need a motion to open up the Village of Mamaroneck budget work session.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So we have our esteemed judges here, Judge Gallagher and Judge Derico. Good
Evening.
Good evening. Jerry, you want to go through the budget with us?
Mayor, I'll have the judges speak about the budget. It is on page 4 of 179. That is a village justice budget. And 2 items that I can speak about before the judges speak is that we identified that there was we never had overtime budgeted in prior budgets, or if it was budgeted, it was zeroed out. But as you know, the Board of Trustees, I've provided a couple of memos on overtime and who gets the overtime and in regards to department heads, but also I was alerted this year, because it's my first year, that a lot of times, or throughout the year, that staff is brought in on weekends in order to handle the needs of the judges, mostly arraignments and other things. So we had to put something in there for that. We put in 2,500 for that, and then we had an increase in the audit on the contract services for O'Connor's Davies, an increase of about $5,600. Those are the major items and changes to the village justice budget.
Is the
And
O'Connor Davies thing a one-time thing, or is that a recurring?
That's recurring. That's the new fee.
yeah, that's the new fee for the court audit.
The court audit is separate from, in their quote, from the total audit that we had.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah. Last year was all budgeted in the 1325 account. So we just broke it out so you could see
correct,
which portion of it went to the court.
right.
Okay. Jerry, did you have anything else?
So
Now,
it didn't raise the overall fee or overall cost of the audit. It just is allocating it within
Yeah.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
reduced one on the court side.
Yep.
Exactly. Thanks.
nothing else, Mayor. Those are the only 2 items that I wanted to point out for the board.
Okay, judges? Your
Okay,
show.
it's Dan Gallagher, and thank you all for having us on. We usually do this in person in the courtroom, and I'll try and give you a little bit of a brief introduction as we usually do. The court, we operate sort of quietly on our own with the support of the village manager, and so we like to just observe that we think that we run a very efficient and pretty much a bare bones operation. If you look through the budget, there's not a whole lot of areas for discretionary spending, but we are a very busy court. As we've noted in the past, we're up to being the 5th busiest court measured by revenue of the 35 Westchester town and village courts. And our staff remains pretty much static as it has for about 20 years, long before my time. This is now my 12th year. We have a staff of 4 full-time clerks, and we have a couple of part-time people. And we've been, up until the time of the start of the crisis, we were very, very busy. And I'd say we were pretty much pushed the limit. We are now working from home. Everybody's working remotely from home, and we're doing our best to catch up with things. But back in January, we, in an effort to support our staff, we did make a request for a 5th full-time employee as a junior employee, and we understand for reasons that we're all aware of that particular position was put on hold. And we certainly, under these circumstances, don't feel it's appropriate to push for that. But we did see a need before the crisis, and we don't think that that need is going to go away anytime, but in the near future. But right now, our budget is essentially flat compared to last year. And so with that, I would just point out, you folks did receive a memo from us a few months ago detailing the changes in law. It's been a very, very busy year for all the courts in New York State, and that's no exception for the Village of Mamaroneck Justice Court, with the discovery law changes, with the bail changes, with the Tenant Reform Act changes. All of those things have changed, and in many ways have actually increased the burden on our staff. So we're not complaining. We're simply saying that we are managing things as well as we can, and we have the commitment of our staff to continue going forward. But with that said, I don't have a lot of things on the that I want to point out on the budget. The overtime, which is mentioned, that's largely because we have after-hours arraignments and weekend arraignments. Some of them are complicated, and we do carefully consider whether we bring our staff in or not. So we are not frivolous when it comes to overtime. I think there's a note of a reduction in postage. Jerry, I think we talked about that.
Yep.
Actual this year was $7,000. We're putting in for 4,500. We
Yep.
have control over that, and so we just suggest that you reconsider that particular number because we can't guess whether it's going to go up or down this year. We actually have more obligations to notify people under the new laws. Some of that will become virtual notification, email, the like, but I think that needs to shake out this year. Other than that, I think the budget's flat, and we appreciate the support we get from the village. I'd also point out that Jerry mentioned that there is an option or an opportunity to take advantage of some FEMA money that may allow us to enhance some of our electronic equipment in the court. And we certainly will work with Jerry to see if we can identify appropriate ways to obtain, that extra support.
Yeah, I believe, Judge, your department and the court, as they make the changes, is going to need some serious technological upgrades. And I hope, anyway.
You think we should update beyond
The
Century?
rotary dial? Yeah, I think so.
We're not quite that bad, but there are some things we can do to definitely improve things. So the cashier position, we'd like hopefully the board will reconsider that sometime the upcoming year. I might even be so bold as to ask if you might possibly put that on the budget, maybe for a portion of 2021 as something of a space saver, if we could revisit it in the new year, if things allow us to consider that. I don't know how the board feels about that, but perhaps that's probably the only ask that we would make.
The only problem with that, Judge, is that if we did that, then it has to count toward a cap.
Okay. The position, just so you're aware of, is a very junior cashier position. I think it calls for a maximum salary right now of about 50,000. So let's say we were to put it on for like the last quarter of this coming year, I guess we'd be talking about, $12,000 or $13,000 in salary. I don't want to press this too hard. I think we have a need, but we also recognize the current circumstances.
Thank you.
We had run through some things with Jerry earlier, which was a very productive conversation. Just latching on to what Judge Gallagher said, we had systemic changes in the system in 2019, which we've been adapting to. And then we rolled right into more historic changes that the court went through as a result of adapting to COVID-19. And in fact, we drafted a protocol for virtual arraignments that Judge Gallagher presented to the administrative judge in the 9th JD, and they ended up using our prototype to be rolled out for the entire 9th JD, which is 5 counties. We are a court of significance. We'd ask that we try to stay the course as much as we can, mindful of our budget constraints, because we don't anticipate once this situation ends that the workload is going to decrease. We are going to have to adapt to more unprecedented changes, which we always do, and we appreciate the board's support. We did go through the suggested reductions. We did have some equipment suggestions, but it's a good thing to hear that we might be able to put that through FEMA. So we're getting that together for the board and Jerry, and we'll present that in conjunction with Cliff and Joe. We did discuss the tent, and I just want to let the board know something we discussed with Jerry, that we're all looking to do things more virtually, a lot more remote payments by the phone. Rest assured that we're evaluating this all the time. We're always constrained, though, by what is permitted by OCA, Office of Court Administration, which can be frustrating. But at every juncture, we're investigating new things, and you'd be surprised to learn that some courts don't even take credit cards right now. So we're trying to be in the forefront and try to work with the village's objectives to achieve the same goals. Other than that, we worked out a protocol for plea by mail that we are rolling out and have been aggressively working on. And I think that we just ask if you could maintain our staffing. The part-timers are essential because the court functions on 2 levels. So we really use those part-timers to go up and down the stairs, as basic as that sounds, to carry things. But it really could be exciting if we had some of these technological changes that we might get through advanced funding. It might make it so much easier for us to do the work. Even something we've always thought about, reducing the papers that we've had to maintain at Village Hall. If we go virtual and we could cut down on this, maybe we could draw a line in the sand and stop having to maintain certain things, obviously with the oversight of the court system as to what they allow, but a change to something more technologically advanced for record keeping files, it could help us towards that objective, which would help the village with space utilization. You can't believe the amount of files we maintain. Other than that, we're pretty, we're always open for questions. We're open for touring. If you want to see what's happening, everything's pretty much the same. And I just want to thank my coworker. We've worked really hard throughout 2019. And then now, we speak daily. We're working with our staff. We're having weekly meetings. We're really trying to keep things as normal as possible in this situation.
Can I just ask a couple questions? The first one is, do we have any indication that after the 45-day closing period, it'll reopen, or is it just are we gonna stay in limbo, kind of?
We've been told already that we have non-essential matters stayed through May 30th. We know that now in the last few days. So by interpretation, that would include court. Just today, we got a new memo indicating we have to run through our records to make sure no one's incarcerated. They've handled extending temporary orders of protection through the computer system. I mean, thank goodness they started to systematize some of this through the court software, so we don't have to handle this in such an old-fashioned manner and like physically opening files. So we can just, run a search and see what we have. But it looks like right now we're at May 30th. Dan?
Yeah, I would say I don't have any guidance on this other than, watching the emails that we get about state and local courts, as well as the news in general. The May 30th was just a minimum date for us to adjourn. They actually said all cases have to be adjourned out beyond May 30th. So the way I read that is that we should not expect anything that appears to be back to normal well into June. And Tom, I suspect that we're going to have to do some protocols even when the courtroom reopens to the public that are not dissimilar from the ones we are contemplating before the shutdown. As we mentioned, setting up the tent to do sort of triage before people come into the courtroom. But we're trying to be ahead of the curve on this. We've both contacted attorneys that have open cases for them to be conferring with the ADAs so that we can hopefully resolve cases in advance, or at least when we're allowed to reduce the amount of traffic.
Regards to the amount of traffic, since this was all started, has crime taken a bit of a holiday?
Well, enforcement has. I don't know if crime has taken a holiday, but I mean, you could just imagine for law enforcement, just based upon the numbers we see in the news and what we may know from our, personal community, their interaction with the public exposes them. So, they have to worry about their own safety. And we've thought of that from day one. And, we've had some situations that have made it difficult. So it's the cases we've been called in on are, difficult. They're major that we'd have to be called in. I don't think they're actively seeking interaction where it can be avoided.
Okay.
But I've also heard countywide that the system right now is that all arraignments have to happen during the daytime, weekdays, Monday through Friday. All arraignments have to go until 5 o'clock, have to be taken to White Plains. The local courts handle the after hours and the weekends. And I've heard that there are very few arraignments happening during the daytime up in White Plains. So the message there is that countywide, there are not a lot of crimes being, there are fewer arrests by far.
Well, hopefully that's because there's fewer crimes.
Let's hope.
Yep. Well, they say that, I guess there was an article at Times a while ago saying that, both the victims and the criminals are more indoors these days. So maybe that's a reflection.
Do we have to determine what the best course of action is when we do open the court again and we want to handle mitigation such as a tent, or has the OCA provided something like that?
They don't really provide a lot of guidance. We don't know what they're going to do going forward. I had the first week of court once this happened, and I worked in conjunction with the police department, who basically, were very clear that they wanted to keep a 6-foot barrier. I think we're intelligent here. We're all reading the same science. We spread apart our chairs.
Yeah.
And we'll probably follow a similar protocol. And
Okay.
I personally, for everyone involved, like the conferences being held out in the tent.
Yeah.
With that separation, you can even get a window in between.
Yeah.
And then we can let people in intervals. We also have really relied upon our regular attorneys who come into court to streamline the process. And I mean, they've been hit financially, business-wise, and they've really stepped up to the plate to help the judges with conferencing on matters that they're not even involved with, to help us with this flow, because obviously to have an attorney involved means the person is getting very clear information and getting their questions answered, and we can make sure that that the law is being properly adjudicated and not circumvented due to these emergency circumstances.
As a practical matter, having a lawyer involved makes for much more efficiency in the process, fewer adjournments and the like. But that's
Spoken like a true lawyer.
You have the right to remain silent.
Anybody else have any questions for the judges?
Yeah, I have a question. When you have a new hire, is it subject under the CSTA? Is it subject to the same union rules that we have or not?
So
in terms
Dan,
of-
can we shelve that question? Can that be the first question that we discuss when we talk on April 27th? Is that okay?
Sure.
I mean, certain employees that does apply, certain don't. And I think maybe we could have a broader discussion when we meet in executive session. Jerry?
Yes.
So I think we're scheduled for April 27th to in executive session. So we'd be happy to elaborate on a lot of that stuff then.
You are on the draft agenda, which is still a draft until Wednesday at noon.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have a question. This is Kelly. I want to thank you both judges for submitting what is really like a flat budget. I know that these are tough times, so I appreciate that you did that. Judge Gallagher, you mentioned that we are the 5th busiest justice court measured by revenue. What is the annual revenue of our court?
Well, I don't have the 2019 numbers. Maybe Augie has them. I get my numbers from the controller's office. And so all I can give you is the numbers for 2018, which is the last date that they have, the last year, which was $1.6 million. The year before, I think it was at 1.7. I don't know what it is for 2019. But, you know, as I indicated in the memo that I sent out to you folks back in January, there's been a sort of linear incline, you know, over the past 10 years. I think 2008, we had $1.15 million. In 2018, we had 1.62.
Okay, thank you.
So we only mention those numbers not to say that there's a clear connection between our workload, you know, and revenues, but just to indicate, you know, that it's one of the few objective standards that we have to go by.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. I mean,
Anybody else have,
Augie,
any other
do you have the numbers for 2019 by any chance?
2019 is 1,002,701.
Okay.
Repeat that, Augie?
1,002,701.
Okay.
This is Victor. This is money that goes straight to the state, right? To the court system.
Not all of it.
No, I'm just for comparison, I'm going to take a look at the numbers for 2018. Of the 1.62 total revenues that we had, I think that the printout says local is 1,035,000. So unless I'm incorrect, I think that local indicates how much goes to us.
Yeah, that's what comes back to us from the numbers composed of the parking fines, the moving violations, and the code violations. So anyone who gets a speeding ticket, there's the state surcharge, and that basically that goes back to the state. The state says, okay, this is a speeding ticket. We get X number of dollars. Village gets Y, and that's what they send back to us.
But parking tickets are all laws, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
100%.
And criminal dispositions have a similar surcharge.
Like if you find somebody on a misdemeanor, is that what you mean?
Correct, like 205 or, yes, for a misdemeanor, 205, sorry.
Anybody else have any other questions for the judges?
Just to finish
Thank
up
you.
the question, it goes first to the state and then they reimburse us. That's what I was trying to explain. Yes. Or it depends where you collect, or it depends where you collect the collection point.
We collect the money and then the state gets notified through their court system software how much they collected and they bill us to get their share.
All right. Thank you, Augie. And thank you, judges.
Thank you.
you all for your support. We appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of the budget process.
Yes, thank you. Work safe.
Thank you.
Be
See you
careful.
Monday.
All right. Next up to bat is the building department.
Yeah.
And imagine leading off for the building department is Mr. Sarnoff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Page 32 of 110.
Dan, speak up clearer, please. I can't hear you.
Sure, sorry about that. Well, one of the major differences between this year's budget and last year's budget is that now the planning, what was formerly the planning division of the building department, is now the planning department with their own budget. And Greg can speak to that a little bit. In looking at the planning, the building budget, which is 83620, we last year the budget was $1,192,582. With this year, with planning being segregated and becoming its own division, the new building department budget is $846,256. Subsequent to the preparation of the tentative budget, and as the COVID-19 public health crisis developed, we were tasked with finding additional savings. There were two areas we were able to find those savings. The first, which was a result of our issues with Acela, is we're not going to be paying $47,000 for the software next year. So we've eliminated that item. Then there are some other minor reductions. The other major change from last year to this year is, we're down a couple of FTEs. Rather than replacing 2 FTEs, we're going to look to hire one part-time code enforcement officer, one part-time assistant building inspector. So that and this was planned before any of these requests to find savings was made. So this was already built into our budget. We're planning on $30,000 for a part-time code enforcement, $30,000 for a part-time assistant building inspector. Having that cost $60,000 if we had to replace them with 2 full-time equivalents. You're talking anywhere from $150,000 to $180,000 between salary and benefits. So this is a significant savings that was already built into the building department budget. Most of our budget is personnel related. We have to be out there conducting inspections, conducting code enforcement, and these last several weeks, if you'd be shocked how many phone calls we're getting in the building department, even with construction deemed non-essential, between emergency work, between code enforcement, between being asked to follow up on certain businesses, which whether or not they're supposed to be open or not, the amount of time that we've had to spend talking about things like landscape maintenance, what's essential, what's not essential. It's been a very active couple of weeks in the building department based on the advice which is coming out from the state, specifically the governor's office and the Empire State Development, which we found they give us the advice, and then as elected officials and government officials, we spend the next 3 weeks saying, well, what did you mean by that? Because there's a incredible lack of clarity in some of the directives that are coming down from the state.
Part of the thinking behind the part-timers was also to allow some flexibility in the schedule. So we potentially could have a part-timer work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, part of Wednesday, to be able to give us some of the weekend coverage, which we spoke about many times, and we feel that we need.
Are there any specific questions on the building department budget?
I guess one of the questions I have is I can't find the overtime line. Do we have an overtime?
Yeah, there is an overtime line. That is A 3620-140.
Dan, sorry, Dan, can we go by pages? And I really thank you for your introduction and I
Oh, sure.
all of what you're doing now. I know you're over the top. But
Out
the point is pages, or at least focus a little pinpoint to where we're in the budget so that we can be, your introduction was kind of did it.
Yeah, I'm looking at what was posted with the agenda this afternoon. Augie, do you happen to have the page for?
In budget, page 80.
the bottom of page 80.
Yeah, and there's also 80/20/140 for planning department.
So last year, you see the number was $35,000. Most of that is used up by the planning staff. There had been the secretary of the land use board and also the assistant planner. So that number in the tentative budget was already reduced by $26,000 in the building department budget. So the 9,000 pays for the overtime that Frank accrues as the acting building inspector, and that Charlotte accrues when she has to attend.
Get called in when she gets called in.
When she gets called in. So, and she's had to attend some land use board meetings as well.
Yeah.
I've asked Dennis to spend some more time before this crisis started with plan review, so for both just general plan review and then for the board of architectural review meetings. So, but we're really trying. It's a major effort to control the overtime costs in the building department this year.
Well, it should be easier this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now allows for a lot. I mean, like I said, it's been very active. We are still accepting submissions for building permits. We will send the people, they can send them in electronically and mail us hard copies. We have certain retention requirements that we need to comport with, specifically, building plans have a permanent shelf life. So, that hasn't been changed yet. So there's still going to be, no matter what changes we're going to make as a result of this process in the next couple of months, there will, unless the state changes certain rules about retention, we're still going to need paper copies of specific documents.
Can I ask a question related to what Jerry said earlier about FEMA?
Yes.
Now that we're requiring all applications to be submitted electronically for land use boards, is there a way of getting better monitors for land use board members as part of the FEMA purchase? Because it's pretty hard to read plans on a small monitor.
Yeah.
So if it's related to the response, it could be something that we can put in for reimbursement for FEMA. If it's something that we want to do as an upgrade to our courtroom or our dais, it may not be.
No, well, it didn't mean the court. I meant just the building department, because now we're requiring applicants to submit everything electronically.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of a burden for the land use board members to read them. Is there a way of making, just sort of using this transition to make that permanent and make it practical?
What do you mean, more like bigger laptops or something?
This is just a monitor, just one you could, because if you're trying to read plans on a laptop computer, it's pretty hard.
Right.
I just, I mean, this is just, I started thinking about when you're trying to FEMA.
Are you talking about for the dais or for people to have at home?
Well, for both. I mean, I would guess right now they're using them at home, but could they use them on the dais? Because if we were going to require if we're going to require paperless, we are requiring paperless submissions. And that's going to probably be for the next 2 months at least, or longer. So could these monitors be used at home and then back in Village Hall? It's not for tonight. It's just one of the things that occurred to me when you talked about the FEMA purchases.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've looked at in prior years is a plan table. They have digital plan tables that you can have installed. We obviously don't really have the space for that
Right.
but it's something for the future to think about.
Jerry, you got something to say?
Nope, I'm just looking through my notes.
I did want to mention one item. In preparing for tonight, I looked at what the planning budget and the building department budget together, what they totaled. Prior to well, the tentative budget, it was about a 4.86% spending increase. With the reductions that we've been requested to look at and propose to the manager, we were able to cut about 5.4% from our collective budgets. And again, as I'm sure Greg will mention, the majority of our budget is personnel. It's very little contractual service.
Last year, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when you combine the building and planning budgets as compared to last year, it's based on the reductions we proposed. We were able to lower the budget by about 5.4%.
And it's in large part due to not hiring an assistant planner or an intern for the time being.
Yep. And
Thank
moving to part-timers.
Yep. So
Janet, I just want to thank you for jumping into that department when there was a gap and working to, especially working on this budget. It's never easy, but I just want to thank you for going up there and doing a yeoman's service.
I think the staff are, just being as professional as they can be, and working as a group to when some of these tough issues come up to figure out how to best address it.
Dan, one question to, this is Victor, one question to wrap it up. When I see the document or the pages that were circulated this morning by Augie showing the revenues and also the expense,
Yep.
on 26, on 3620, I see four changes with officer fuels, software. Are those the changes, or are we talking more changes that I missed?
I think the changes were, there was the $47,000 for Excella, which is coming out. I think there were a couple of other minor changes. I think we scaled back on auto repairs. Where we have two 2006 vehicles, which are
Yeah, I have it, Dan.
Yeah, okay.
There's a reduction, there's one reduction in salary,
Yep.
which will be discussed in executive. There's a fuel oil lubricants that was reduced by 1,500. Miscellaneous office supplies was reduced by 3,000, and then building department software, Acela, which was full reduction of 47,000. Victor.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
No,
Before
that's
we-
my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody else?
Greg is next if we're done with building.
Sure.
What's Greg's page number?
Greg's all the way at the back. Page
It's 150.
150, right. Sorry.
Yeah, don't get surprised by the percentage increase since last year.
We managed to cut to 3,000%.
Yeah.
So Greg, if you just let me for a second.
Sure.
What the deuce?
After talking to Greg about budget cuts, Greg suggested that we eliminate for this year the assistant planner, which is vacant now, but we eliminate the 53.3 for the assistant planner. We also had a line item for a part-timer / intern. We go back and forth on the term of 8,000, and then Greg also reduced miscellaneous equipment by $1,500 to $500. Those were the cuts that Greg and I discussed. Who knows how long ago it was? Every day is the same.
And actually, I had a discussion with Dan Sarnoff earlier today about the budget, and there is potentially an opportunity for some reductions in the overtime because there will be no assistant planner. and they would have taken up some of that overtime budget. So we'd have to run some numbers to come up with a realistic reduction, but that's something we can look at.
Yeah, let me know on that tomorrow. That'd be good.
Greg, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
I realize this has to happen now, but what will not get done that could have gotten done if we had an assistant planner?
So since the moratorium's been over, things have kind of slowed down a bit in terms of demands on the planning department. So I don't think that much will not get done. I think it's some of the more long-term projects that have been in the queue for some time, like the water quality improvement plan, hastening some of the other projects like the industrial area. We're coming up to a close on the comprehensive plan. We're at the last mile mark on that. So in my discussions with Jerry, we felt it was appropriate to cut that position for the time being. In terms of the land use functions, we're making do with the staff we have in terms of application review, in terms of seeker review. Everything essential is still adequately operating, and it has been since we lost the assistant planner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I do want to say thank you, Greg, because you had an assistant planner and you lost him, and you're saying you can do without him. And I mean, I appreciate that. The village appreciates it. It's just more work for you. And I just want to thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions for our friend, Mr. Cutler?
No, just to thank him and all the team organization he's doing, and thank you for keeping that running. I think very smoothly. I think I know you've done a lot on that front, so thank you for that.
Yep, and we're always trying to improve our processes so that things don't get missed, and because we have very complicated land use process. So we're trying to streamline a lot of that, the applications, checklists, things of that nature. So even with a smaller staff, we'll be able to maintain high quality service.
Thank you.
Greg, I have one question about, if I can find it now. It was to get your CFM.
Yep.
We put that in here, right? Because now
It's
I
in.
can't find it.
It should be under training. It's within the training and conferences.
2990. And so have you had any information from the Planning Federation or anyone, if that's going to be an solely online type of certification instead of going to the 4-day course in August, as we originally discussed?
I haven't heard anything, but I can look into it and let you know by tomorrow.
If you could, that would be helpful.
Anybody have questions? Hearing none. Greg, thank you very much for a job well done. Thank you for all your work on PLLC.
Thank you.
Okay. What do we have tomorrow?
The Italians.
Excuse me?
Public
Augie,
Works.
Tony, and me, the Italians. You have tomorrow.
I'm watching my son eating chicken cutlet parmesan.
Mayor, if I can have just a minute, as it stands, everyone has received the emails. We worked really hard this morning which started on Friday, and then all weekend to try to look at all the numbers so So two things we were able to achieve over the weekend. We have a tax cap compliant budget, and we eliminated the increase request for the sewer fee. We were able to do both of those items with all the tweaking that we did with the budget.
That you guys really did a great job.
You did.
How much of the fire department's equipment has been capitalized that was in operating?
That we were going to potentially purchase out of capital. Hold on a second, let me see here.
72,000.
72, right?
Yeah.
72,000.
And just so the board knows, I had a discussion with State Assemblyman Otis, and he asked for information about our fire department. Because I talked to him because he saw the email that I sent out about the budget condition, and he wanted to know what he could do to help. And he thought that he could get grants for the fire department for some of the stuff that we are capitalizing. Of course, you can't, put prospective grants in the budget, but Steve is pretty good when he says he thinks he can get something. He's pretty good at it. So keep your fingers crossed for that.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thank you, everybody, for spending all this time and realizing these savings.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, it offsets what we know we're not going to take in as revenue, and it's very much appreciated, and I think it'll be very much appreciated by not only us, but by the residents too.
Thank you.
Just on something we were talking about before, Congress is going to pass a law that the next stimulus bill, and they are not going to do anything to help states and local municipalities.
That's correct.
No surprise, unfortunately, but
So the cavalry ain't coming.
nope.
No.
And it was in question. It was in question over the weekend, but today it became evident that that's not going to happen. So we're
Well,
on our own.
I don't know how other municipalities are doing right now around us, but I think what you guys have done, Jerry, and your department heads, has been really remarkable. I mean, it honestly, it makes me want to weep because I know everyone is sacrificing a lot. I didn't know that it could be done. I'm stunned. And I just thank you on behalf of the village residents. It's been really remarkable.
You're welcome. And you know from attending some of the county calls that they're waiting for the county to provide guidance on how to furlough and lay off employees. And
Yeah.
that's what they're waiting for. Every other municipality is waiting for that. So
Yeah.
And hopefully we won't have to do that, thank God. We have people who work here, who've worked here a long, long time, who built this community, who grew up in this community. And I hate to think that the first sign of trouble, we throw somebody overboard.
no, we need them so they can do 2 or 3 jobs.
Right.
Well, same for me, and I want to thank Laura and Augie. They've been,
True.
extra. In addition to all this, clarifying certain important aspects that, they everything has come together. So I appreciate everybody's effort, and we've reached at least we're breathing time now. And thank you for this tremendous work.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, it's like we flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. If there's
So,
no other business.
Can I ask one question? Just
Sure.
in terms of how this works. So we have our tentative budget and we have all of these cuts. And how will it get sort of finally wrapped up we're hoping to adopt the budget Monday night at Monday night's meeting. How does the public get to understand what these reductions are?
Oh, I would believe we have the documents. Augie and Laura have provided the documents of where the reductions are.
Right.
That's part of the backup to the budget
Okay.
hearing. And
I mean, I think that's the simplest way of doing it.
I think so. I think,
They'll actually be in the budget too. I mean, it will be reflected in the budget that we vote on.
is there another method, or is that, because it's very easy to understand what you created?
We're going to be putting out a 7-page budget resolution that lists out every adjustment that was made. And in the budget document itself, we're going to be listing out everything that was deferred.
And then after the budget with these, after these budget with these proposed changes is adopted, then the budget gets redone, correct?
The adopted budget reflects the,
Yes. The new numbers get put in.
yes, and you know,
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
correct, Nora.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, staff. Thank you, my colleagues on the board, for all your hard work.
Thank
This
you, everyone.
is never easy. This year in particular has been the worst I ever saw. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Thank you all. Stay well. I'll see you
Thank
tomorrow
Good
night.
night.
Bye-bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.